The day I died, my sister's wedding went ahead as scheduled. She wore a wedding dress and married my boyfriend. My mum made several calls, but no one answered. Furious, she cursed me for being an ungrateful wretch. My brother sent a message scolding. "Are you really that petty? Still holding a grudge over something that happened 2 years ago?" My usually quiet dad said coldly, "Tell her, if she doesn't come home today, we'll act as if we never had this daughter." They didn't actually want me to come home. They just didn't want my sister's wedding to be less than perfect because it lacked my blessing. But I was already dead. From a very young age, I knew I wasn't liked in this family. Once, when Mom returned from a business trip out of town, she brought back 2 new toys and gave them to Susie and Xu Tao. After handing them out, she was about to leave when I stopped her, reminding her softly, "Mum, what about me? You want one too?" My mum frowned, saying impatiently, "They're expensive. I didn't bring enough money, so I didn't get one for you." I was only 5 then, but I already had a vague sense of other people's emotions, especially when that person was my own mother. And now, at my sister's wedding venue, after exchanging pleasantries with a few relatives, my mum walked to a corner, turned her back and dialed my number over and over again. No one answered. On the 3rd try, the call was directly hung up. It was as if someone had grabbed her by the throat. She stared wide-eyed in disbelief. "Xu Tao, I'm your mother." Susie walked over, patting her back comfortingly. "Mum, don't be angry. It's not worth it for Xu Tao. Don't you know by now? That's just how she is." My mum's anger and resentment finally found an outlet with her most beloved son. Of my 3 children, I've invested the most effort in Xu Tao. When I gave birth to her, it was supposed to be twins. Even the doctor said she survived by taking nutrients from your older brother. I had heard her repeat this phrase countless times since I was little. In the end, I'd often be punished, locked in my room, watching as the 4 of them went out to relax. "Mum, don't be angry. Don't worry, even if I have to drag her back, I'll make sure she shows up today." After comforting Mum, Susie sent me several WeChat messages. "Xu Tao, you'd better show up within an hour. How can you be so selfish? You know Mom has heart problems, yet you still try to upset her. Is a man really worth holding a grudge over for so long? Besides, isn't Jiao Jiao your sister too?" After sending this last message, his fingers paused on the keyboard. A few seconds later, he put away his phone and went back to helping with the guests. Yeah, even he didn't believe it himself. Xu Jiao was his good sister, my parents' good daughter. But how could she be my sister? I drifted upstairs and saw Xu Jiao sitting in the makeup room. The makeup artist was touching up her slightly smudged eye makeup. She held Dad's hand, her eyes glistening with tears. "Dad, is Dao Dao really not coming? She's my sister. On the most important day of my life, I really hope to receive her blessing." My dad, who was always strict and cold toward me, patted her shoulder gently, comforting her. "Don't worry. I've asked Ace to contact her. We won't let you have any regrets." He found Susie in the hallway and said coldly, "Tell Xu Tao that if she doesn't come today, we'll act as if we never had this daughter." "Dad, she's not replying to my messages. She won't even answer Mom's calls." Susie spoke through gritted teeth. "I knew it. Someone like her has no conscience. Agreeing in the first place was just to give us hope and ruin Jiao Jiao's most important day. Today was Xu Zhao's most important day. She was about to put on a wedding dress and marry Song Fei, the man she had been dating for 2 years. 2 years ago, when I brought Song Fei home, Xu Zhao fell in love with him at first sight. I still remember how her eyes lit up the moment she saw Song Fei. That night, she found an excuse to take me out for a walk. She bought me a milk tea, held my arm, and swayed gently. "Dao Dao, I really like guys like Song Fei. You're so capable, I'm sure you can find someone better. Why not let me have Song Fei?" I refused. But not long after returning to school, Song Fei broke up with me. I kept asking why, and he probably got annoyed. He shook off my hand abruptly. I fell to the ground, the rough pavement scraping my palms, sending a sharp pain through me. But he remained unmoved, just looking at me with disgust, still trying to hide it from me. "Even your own family couldn't stand it and told me everything." One morning when my mum suddenly asked me to go grocery shopping with her, My brother, Suzy, pulled Song Fei aside and told him some truths about me. Bad character, stealing money from home, bullying classmates, messy relationships, having an abortion in college. At the end, righteous Suzy sighed. Xu Tao is my sister. I'd like to take her side, but I can't watch you fall into a trap. My scraped palms still hurt as I sat on the ground, looking up at Song Fei, listening to him recount everything. When the last word fell, I suddenly laughed. He frowned. Do you still want to defend yourself? I shook my head, smiling. Everything they said is true. Song Fei's feelings for me weren't that deep to begin with, and besides, the ones telling him how terrible I was were my family. My own flesh and blood, my family. When I was alive, no one cared about me. So of course, no one knew I was dead. As they spoke, Song Fei arrived. Dressed in a suit, with his hair styled, he looked even more handsome. He kissed Xu Jiao's cheek softly and asked, Xu Tao still isn't here. Xu Jiao nodded, tears in her eyes. Forget it, don't worry about her, Song Fei said, his expression darkening. Someone like her would only taint our wedding if she came. Jiao, you're the bride today. Don't shed tears for someone who isn't worth it. Xu Jiao wrapped her arms around his neck, looking up at him with a sorrowful expression. No matter what, Dao is still my sister. She always looked utterly sincere. Just like 3 years ago, as an outstanding graduate. The school hoped that on graduation day, my parents could attend, say a few words on stage, and take photos for the school's promotion. I carefully rehearsed my words, called home, and timidly made the request. My mom agreed. But on the morning of the ceremony, she called to tell me she and Dad couldn't make it. Jiao is sick. We can't leave her home alone. In the video, Xu Jiao looked at me apologetically, her face pale. Sorry, Dao, I'm not feeling well. You've always been so independent. Even if Mum and Dad don't come, I'm sure you can handle it. Dao, happy graduation. Happy graduation. How could I be happy? On my graduation day, I apologized to my teacher, to the college, to the staff in charge of the event. As I passed by a camera, I overheard someone complaining. We rehearsed the whole ceremony, and now we have to redo it. What a joke. And she's supposed to be an outstanding graduate. When the ceremony ended, I took out my phone and saw that Xu Jiao had posted a WeChat Moments update. Just a little cold, but Mom and Dad took such good care of me. Little blessings in life. The photos showed the 3 of them together. The background was Xu Jiao's bedroom. They hadn't even gone to the hospital. What a serious illness indeed. The banquet hall was filled with the melodious sound of a piano piece. Xu Jiao, wearing a long fishtail wedding gown and holding a large bouquet of white roses, walked towards Song Fei. After our parents gave their speeches, it was Suzy's turn. Standing on the stage, he playfully shook his fist at Song Fei. I have only one sister, the treasure of our whole family. If you dare treat her badly, none of us will let you off. Song Fei gazed at Xu Jiao's face, his tone deeply affectionate. I wouldn't dare. Applause erupted from below. The stage was filled with warmth. My soul stood atop a floral arrangement by the stage, watching them blankly. I thought I would feel heartache. But perhaps, before death, I had already endured all the pain of this lifetime. I simply observed it all with cold detachment, my heart hollow, as if wind was blowing through it. At one of the tables, someone whispered, Hey, I remember the Xu family has 3 children. Why did Suzy say he has only one sister? It's because of that second daughter. Xu Tao. TSK. What's the use of being good at studying? What matters most in life is character. Thanks to my parents, my reputation among relatives on both sides was also notorious. Actually, when I was little, one of my aunts used to be quite nice to me. During the New Year visit, she gave me a plush dolphin toy. I was the only one who got one. Neither Suzy nor Xu Jiao received anything. Suzy, used to getting his way, demanded I give it to him. When I refused, he simply took scissors and cut the dolphin to pieces. Not long after, my aunt returned to retrieve the scarf she had forgotten, and happened to see the fragments scattered all over the floor. To protect her beloved younger son's reputation, my mom told my aunt. Dao didn't like the toy, and insisted on cutting it up with scissors, saying she didn't want to see it. My aunt's expression immediately changed. From then on, whenever she visited, she even skipped giving me red envelopes. After this incident, my mum probably felt a little guilty and treated me well for a while. But it didn't last long. In our family, my parents' favoritism had a clear division. The year Xu Tao was born, my dad's business took a major turn for the better. He believed it was Xu Tao who brought the good luck, so he doted on her the most. My mom, on the other hand, loved Suzy the most, because he was the younger son she had longed for after having 3 children. As for me, I was born plump and fair, while my twin brother didn't survive even 24 hours. They all thought I was unlucky. When I was little, I could never understand. Why was it that whatever Suzy and Xu Jiao wanted to eat would appear on the dinner table the next day? And why, despite my seafood allergy, on my birthday, just because Xu Jiao said she wanted to eat crab, my dad booked a seafood restaurant? When I was 12, an earthquake struck the neighboring county. At the time, the whole family was taking an afternoon nap at home. Without a second thought, my parents each picked up Suzy and Xu Jiao. I stumbled down the stairs, watching the shaking ceiling, crying my heart out. But no one came to save me. That's how it was when I was 12. And that's how it was when the driver choked me and dragged me into the deserted woods at the foot of the mountain. In the afternoon, the wedding concluded perfectly. After seeing off the guests, my dad immediately turned grim and asked my mom to keep calling me. Xu Jiao's eyes were red, and the rhinestones glued to the corners of her eyes refracted her tears. She held Dad's hand and said understandingly, "Forget it, Dad. Dao Dao is still a child. Maybe she's just throwing a tantrum. After all, I'm her older sister. I shouldn't hold it against her." Sure enough, a flicker of pity crossed my dad's eyes. Suzy said discontentedly, "Sis, you always think too highly of her. You treat her as a sister. But has she ever treated you as one?" Xu Jiao bit her lip, looking as if she was about to cry. I stood nearby, watching her, feeling nothing but utter irony. Xu Jiao was always like this. The favoritism shown to her by our family was already as obvious as it could be. Yet she still felt it wasn't enough. I knew it was because she resented me. Actually, in the beginning, although my mom didn't like me, she wasn't that bad to me. On my birthdays, she would still bring back a cake to celebrate. But just as the candles were lit and I was about to make a wish, Xu Jiao suddenly started crying. She wiped away her tears and forced a brave smile. "It's nothing. I just suddenly remembered that today's birthday should have been for 2 people. With those words, my mom's expression changed. I clasped my hands together, about to make a wish, when she abruptly pulled out the candles. "Eat, eat. All you know is eating. Xu Dao, do you know your brother died because of you? Do you have no heart?" I was frightened, staring at her blankly. My mom grew even angrier and swept the entire cake into the trash. After she went into the bedroom, I turned to Xu Jiao, my eyes filled with tears. With no one else around, she finally revealed her true feelings to me. 10-year-old Xu Jiao still wore a gentle smile on her face, but the words she spat out were like poisoned blades. "Xu Dao, why did you have to be born?" She brushed her warm fingertips across my face, then suddenly pinched me hard. "Originally, Mom and Dad loved only me. Now you've taken away their love. You should have died along with your brother." I never understood why she hated me so much. Yet after Suzy was born, she treated him well. The year I took the college entrance exam, Suzy was about to start 9th grade, a critical year. But my dad was too busy with work, and my mom was at a crucial point in her promotion. My mom demanded that I apply to a local university so I could take care of Suzy on weekdays. I refused. She looked at me with icy eyes. "Xu Dao, don't you know our family's situation? How can you be so inconsiderate?" After I left the university, 22-year-old Xu Jiao suddenly decided to learn the piano. My mom had someone throw away my bed and wardrobe, packing my clothes and tossing them into the storage room. My bedroom became Xu Jiao's piano room. She posted a video on her social media, her sitting in front of a newly bought, expensive piano. Sunlight poured in, and she wore a serene smile. When I called home, my mom was still angry that I hadn't listened to her. Her voice was cold. "Since you've grown wings and don't listen to anything I say, and you don't plan to come back home anyway, what's the point of keeping the room?" Xu Jiao took the phone. Dao Dao, why don't you stop making Mom angry? When you come home, you can share a room with me. The family won't leave you without a place to stay. Even though she tried her best to hide it, her voice still carried a hint of laughter. Only a month after I left, she was already eager to drive me out of this home. And my mum chose to silently allow and indulge it. In the afternoon, Xu Tao followed Song Fei back to their new home. As for me, I followed my parents and Suzy. Suzy was driving, with my parents sitting in the back seat. The empty passenger seat had always been reserved for Xu Tao. I sat there, listening to them discuss my faults one after another. She resents me, resents this family so much that she wanted to even come back for her own sister's wedding. My mom leaned tiredly against my dad's shoulder. I feel like my parenting has really failed. My dad patted her affectionately. An ungrateful wretch like her, I isn't worth your energy. I turned my head, carefully observing their expressions, trying to find even a trace of concern. But there was none. My sudden disappearance only made them feel anger and resentment. Not a single person, for even a second, doubted whether something might have happened to me. Even though I was just a soul, I could still shed tears. Crying and laughing at the same time, I asked, "Mom, did you really, truly ever love me? If you hate me so much, why did you give birth to me?" I had asked the same question once before, a long time ago. Back then, I was in my 3rd year of middle school, a crucial year for studies. My dad was away on business. Suzy was still young, and Xu Jiao had just started university. My mom had kidney stones, and I was the one running between school and the hospital every day to take care of her, losing a lot of weight from exhaustion. My mom seemed moved. That month, she gave me more pocket money than Suzy. When we met the neighbors, she praised me several times, saying I was sensible and filial. When I was bullied by classmates, she even went to the school to stand up for me. It seemed like everything was moving in a good direction. Until that afternoon when we were crossing the street together, she somehow reached out and held my hand. Such mother-daughter intimacy felt utterly unfamiliar to me. Almost instinctively, I pushed her hand away, causing her to stagger back 2 steps. It was dusk. The green light turned red. A car sped past, narrowly missing us. The way my mom looked at me slowly changed again. It was a coldness I knew all too well. Her face tightened, and she said flatly, "Truly an ungrateful wretch." That night, I was almost swallowed by regret and bewildered helplessness. I stabbed my arm several times with a compass, but even the pain couldn't ease the despair and anxiety raging inside me. In the end, I walked into my mom's room and asked her, "Mom, if you don't love me, why did you give birth to me?" My mom lay with her eyes closed, saying nothing. But I knew she wasn't asleep. She couldn't be bothered to answer me while I was alive. Now that I'm dead, she can't hear me, and she won't respond to me. After dinner, Suzy called my phone again. This time, someone actually answered. His pent-up fury finally found an outlet. "Xu Tao, are you an animal? You didn't come home for your sister's wedding. You upset Mom and Dad. Do you think you're something special? Do you get off on toying with us?" A moment of silence. Then a hoarse male voice came through the line. "I'm her boyfriend. She said all of you make her sick, and she won't be coming back to see you. Don't call again." The call ended. Suzy stared in disbelief, then suddenly exploded with rage, kicking over a chair and cursing violently. But I was already frozen stiff, all strength drained from my body. The instant that voice sounded, I was dragged back into that memory. Before I died, I'd missed the last high-speed train due to overtime work. I could only take a taxi to the bus station. The driver was a pale young man with somewhat gloomy eyes. He looked familiar, but my mind was exhausted to the limit. So I just hugged my things and rested against the window. At first, everything seemed normal. Like any driver, he made small talk with me. Then, Xu Jiao suddenly called. Even on the eve of her own wedding, she couldn't resist provoking me. "Dao Dao, I'm marrying Song Fei tomorrow. I'm just so excited I can't sleep," she said gently. "Thank you for bringing him home." I pressed my lips together, fury simmering in my voice. "Xu Jiao, how many more times are you going to play these disgusting games before you get tired of them?" She acted as if she hadn't heard. Her tone grew even lighter and sweeter. Then it settled, "You must come to the wedding tomorrow." I hung up, breathing heavily, my chest heaving. The driver suddenly spoke. Fighting with family? Frowning, I looked up and realized the car had been driven to a desolate, wild outskirts without my noticing. My heart began to race wildly. Forcing myself to stay calm, I asked him, "How much do you want?" But it wasn't money he wanted. The relentless overtime had left me utterly exhausted, my limbs weak and limp. I couldn't fight off the strength of a young man. He covered my mouth and dragged me into a small grove. The night wind was still, the moonlight softly spilling down. He gripped my neck tightly with one hand while slapping me hard with the other. He said, "Bitch, you must regret leaving me now. Who does that rich guy you're with think he is, looking down on me? Beg for mercy, bark like a dog, and I'll let you go." But I didn't even know him. "Who are you?" His grip on my throat suddenly loosened. He began to gently stroke my face instead. He said, "I'm your man." Something about him felt not entirely unfamiliar, but I just couldn't remember where I'd seen him before. I struggled with all my might, and actually managed to reach my phone. The speed dial would call the last number contacted. Beep. After 2 rings, Xu Tao decisively hung up. The man noticed something was wrong. He let out a cruel laugh, stuffed the phone into his pocket, then broke every finger on my right hand. In his pocket, he also carried a switchblade. While I was still conscious and could feel everything, I felt the blade cut into my left wrist, slowly sawing it off. The tip of the knife slashed across my face, peeling off a patch of ragged skin. He said, "Bitch, let's see you use this face to seduce anyone else now." I don't remember whether I died from the pain or from blood loss. I only remember the wind that night in the wilderness, howling past the exposed flesh of my face. Perhaps when people are dying, they think of beautiful things. In my dazed state, I remembered the time before I turned 5. To give birth to Suzy, my mother sent me to the countryside. Only my elderly grandmother lived there. She was the person who treated me best in this world, gave me all the warmth I ever knew in life. She would pick the tenderest tips of tune leaves from the tree, blanch them in water, and fry them with eggs for me. My mother called, saying Xu Jiao wanted to eat tune, but it wasn't available in the market. Grandma said, "Oh dear, there hasn't been enough rain this year. The tune hasn't grown." After hanging up, the mischievous old lady winked at me and smiled. I've always remembered the taste that lingered on my tongue that night. But the year I turned 5, Grandma passed away from illness. Suzy was only 1.5, so my mother was forced to bring me home. She resented me for it. She whispered to my father, "Does this child have some problem? Did she bring bad luck even to her own grandmother?" I stared at her blankly. Truthfully, a 5-year-old doesn't fully understand death. I only knew that no one in the world would ever choose me, unwaveringly, among everyone else, ever again. From then on, I was the child who would never be favored. The moment my breath stopped, my soul was tugged by the wind, drifting out of my body. I saw that man take an axe from the car trunk and chop through the bones connecting my limbs. Under the starry sky, I saw trains speeding thousands of miles, rushing through quiet fields. In a high-rise building, I saw a little girl suddenly wake from a nightmare. She cried out just once before her parents rushed into the room, holding her close, patting her back to comfort her. In the end, the very end, I saw Xu Jiao yawn and wake up in bed. Under my mother's urging, she washed up, changed into her going-away dress. I have returned. Even after death, I came back to this house. I attended Xu Jiao's wedding. That man raped me, killed me, dismembered me, and took my phone. Suzy didn't realize what had happened. He just coldly told my father. Xu Tao wouldn't even answer my call. She only had her boyfriend tell me that she finds our whole family disgusting. My father was enraged. He slammed the table and called me an animal. It seems people in business tend to be superstitious. He favored Xu Jiao because after she was born, his business flourished. His assets doubled within 2 years. So when I was born, and his factory faced a crisis, nearly going bankrupt, it made sense for him to despise me, to think I brought bad luck. My father controlled the family finances, so Xu Jiao could attend a Sino-foreign joint university costing over 100,000 a year. Suzy could take tutoring classes at 700 yuan an hour, while one, studying in a first-tier city, received a monthly allowance of 1,200 yuan. For the next few days I stayed in this house, watching coldly as they lived their normal lives. Watching my mother call Xu Tao, asking what she wanted to eat when she returned home after the wedding. Xu Jiao whined that she wanted seafood. When my mother went to the morning market, she ran into our childhood neighbor, out shopping with her daughter Meng Meng. Meng and I had been classmates since childhood, and later worked at the same company. We weren't very close friends, but we were at least familiar. My mother said enviously, "Having a daughter like Meng Meng must be such a comfort coming home to help you shop and carry groceries. Not like our ungrateful Xu Tao. Her own sister's wedding and she doesn't come home, even gets a boyfriend to curse at us." Huh? Meng Meng looked surprised. Auntie, Xu Tao doesn't have a boyfriend. My mother stared at her, puzzled. She's in the marketing department next door, always swamped with work. How would she have time for a boyfriend? Meng Meng said, "And Xu Tao cares about you too. Last month when she got her bonus, we went shopping. She bought a gold bracelet, saying she'd give it to you when she came home for her sister's wedding." A flicker of confusion passed over my mother's face, quickly replaced by the familiar cold sneer. She said, "Xu Tao just puts on a good show for outsiders. You have no idea how she treats us at home." Seeing this, Meng Meng and her mother couldn't say much more and politely said goodbye. My mother bought a lot of Xu Jiao's favorite seafood, carrying 2 heavy bags home. Standing at the door, she took out her keys to unlock it. Her phone rang. It was my number. "Miss Zhao Su? We've apprehended a suspect in a series of brutal murders. We found this phone on him, and based on the contact name, you appear to be the owner's mother. The suspect has disclosed the burial site. Could you and your family please come to Jiaocheng?" During the most rebellious, extreme years of my adolescence, I had often thought in agony, what if? What if I just died? Would they regret it? Would my mother shed a single tear for me? Now, I finally knew. After the officer finished speaking, she gave a faint response. "Oh," and hung up. As if nothing had happened, she opened the door, went inside, poured out the seafood, and began preparing the shrimp and crab. Perhaps carelessly, a shrimp antenna pricked her finger. She lifted the injured finger and went to the living room for the first aid kit. That's when Suzy pushed the door open. Flustered and helpless, he looked at her, his lips trembling. "Mum, Xu Tao, she..." "Oh, just got a scam call saying Xu Tao died," my mother said, lowering her head to look for a bandage. What a joke. Xu Tao's living more freely than anyone. Don't these scammers do any research before calling? "Mum, that wasn't a scam call. Xu Tao, she really died," Suzy said painfully. "The police called Dad and me. Dad's driving home right now." My mother's movements stopped abruptly. She looked up at Suzy. The daylight outside the window streamed in, climbing over the fine lines at the corners of her eyes, falling into those eyes that had always watched me coldly. This unreadable expression remained until they boarded the high-speed train, heading to the police station thousands of miles away. My mother wasn't a woman of few words, but she was unusually silent the entire journey. Xu Jiao took her hand and comforted her softly. "Mum, what's gone is gone. Dao Dao wouldn't want to see you like this." For the first time, my mother ignored her beloved eldest daughter's words. Indifferently, she withdrew her hand. Xu Jiao stiffened, hurt and resentment flashing in her eyes. Entering the police station, 2 officers received them. The older one first comforted my mother briefly, then told her my body had been found. We did our best to suture it, but some fragmented limbs were taken away by the suspect. According to his own confession, possibly. Here, he paused suddenly, a flicker of reluctance in his eyes. My mother looked up at him and uttered her first words since arriving. Possibly what? Possibly, they were cooked and eaten. My mother nodded. Perhaps her expression was far calmer than the officers had anticipated. On the way there, the younger officer glanced back at her twice. My remains had been stitched together and cleaned up, but because of the torture before death, my face and features had become blurred, and my limbs were swollen. The smell of the body wasn't exactly pleasant. The moment she saw me, Xu Jiao couldn't help covering her mouth, turning and running out, leaning against the wall dry heaving. The suspect, Qi Bei, has been drifting around Jiaoxing these past 2 years. committing 3 vicious murders involving dismemberment. He specifically targeted young women living alone in the city. Before acting, he would observe them for a period to ensure they wouldn't be missed. But this time, the victim Xu Tao's body wasn't buried deep. It rained in Zhaocheng a few days ago, and the rain washed it out. Someone foraging for wood ear fungus in the woods discovered her, I remembered. Why the man's face had seemed familiar. About a month ago, I'd seen him near my company. That afternoon, a light drizzle was falling in Zhaocheng. I walked out of the office building. My mother called, saying Xu Jiao's wedding was in a month. She ordered me to come home. I couldn't help laughing. I've been gone for half a year, and not one of you contacted me. Why should I go back now? My mother was furious. Xu Tao, you're so ungrateful. This is your home too. Was this my home too? The home where every time I returned, I could only set up a small bed next to Xu Jiao's piano. Where if I intentionally took the last chicken wing from the plate, my father would slam his chopsticks and call me ill-bred. Where when I stained the sofa cover during my period, my mother would look at me with disgust and tell me to wash it myself afterward. Was that home? Mum, I don't have a home, I said with a laugh and hung up. Just a few steps away, in the curtain of rain, a man in a black jacket stood there, his face somewhat blurred. When our eyes met, he turned away unnaturally. But at that time, my chest was filled with a sour, swelling emotion, and I had no mind for a stranger's odd behavior. So, he had targeted me long ago. And after overhearing my argument with my mother that day, he decided I was a suitable target. The pain from that night seemed to return, this time descending upon my light, floating soul. I curled into a ball in the air, my body feeling full of holes, leaking wind. It hurt, more than that night. Yet, I couldn't help lifting my head, staring straight at my mother's expression. Even now, I was still searching. Would she regret it? Would she feel sad? Would she feel even 1% of my pain? Led by the officers, my mother went to see the murderer. It was said his motive was simple and straightforward. His ex-girlfriend had left him for a wealthy man. The other party had even set him up, causing him to lose his entire family savings. From then on, he spiraled into extreme madness. The victims he targeted all bore some resemblance to his ex-girlfriend. Through the glass, under the harsh lights of the interrogation room, he looked up at my mother and suddenly grinned. Seeming to know he had no way out, he wanted others to suffer with him. In front of my mother, he began describing the details before my death. She accidentally got her phone and even dialed a call. Luckily, the other end hung up. Was the call to you? Your daughter looked so pretty when she cried. Even more like that bitch. So I peeled off her face. She was in so much pain she couldn't even cry. Still calling for her mother. The officer sternly interrupted. Enough. Don't provoke the victim's family. My mother stood before the glass, her back still straight, staring intently at the murderer. She didn't speak, nor did she shed tears. I floated before her, face to face. She couldn't see me, nor hear me. I said, Mom, I hate you. That night of violation, of being dismembered while still alive, I experienced the most extreme pain a human can endure. Blood gushed out, dyeing my vision completely crimson. A beast-like, despairing howl tore from my throat. The sound of wind, insects chirping, dry leaves rustling down, fungi growing on damp wood. Countless noises combined into a drumbeat, pounding in my ears. Deafening, I kept calling. Mum, it hurts so much. Save me, Mom, save me. In moments of ultimate human despair and helplessness, we instinctively call out such names, hoping perhaps for a miracle. But there was none. You were at home in your warm bed, having a sweet dream. Dreaming of your beloved eldest daughter Xu Jiao getting married, living a happy life. Susie's pursuit of a girl was going steadily. He attended a very good university. A popular major guaranteed a good job after graduation. In your dreams, there was never me. After leaving the police station, they went to my rented apartment, following the address provided by the police, to collect my belongings. After graduation, I had stayed here, working and living, for 2 full years. They had never visited. Sitting in the car, my mother suddenly called out, Jiao. Jiao. Xu Jiao looked at her uneasily, unconcealable guilt hidden in her eyes. Was that call Xu Tao made before she died to you? Xu Jiao opened her mouth but couldn't make a sound at first. Usually quick-witted, she couldn't find a suitable excuse. Finally, she said, I had to get up at 4 to do my makeup, so I went to bed very early. Maybe I accidentally hung up in my sleep. She squeezed out a few tears, making her sorrow look genuine. My mother nodded and said nothing more, as if it were just a casual question. Well, she called Xu Jiao, always Jiao Jiao, when mentioning me, just by my full name. I sat in the car. It took a long time to gradually recover from that near-death pain. A glimmer of tears sparkled at the corner of Xu Jiao's eyes. I wandered aimlessly through memories, recalling the origin of our 3 names. Xu Jiao was their first doted-on child. Xu Zi was a blessing bestowed by heaven. And my name. Less than 24 hours after my birth, my twin brother stopped breathing. The doctor said the fetus had developed poorly in the womb, leading to organ failure. By the sickbed, an old woman shared her experience. This kind of situation is definitely because one baby stole the other's nutrients. I've seen it in my years delivering babies in the countryside. Look at your daughter. How well she's grown. My mother leaned against the headboard, looking at me with resentment and confusion. By my full-month celebration, she still hadn't given me a name. Until Grandma called. The peach blossoms in front of the old house are blooming beautifully this year. Call her Xu Tao. My father consulted someone. They said the character Tao was good. Peachwood wards off evil, can suppress my inauspicious fate. A deathly silence filled the car. Xu Zi broke the silence. He said somewhat awkwardly, I didn't expect Xu Tao to have such bad luck. My mother suddenly turned to him. What did you call her? Xu Zi was stunned. He always called Xu Jiao sister, but called me by my full name. In our family, this was an unspoken, allowed practice. Xu Tao is your sister. Your father and I can call her that, but you can't call your own sister by her full name. It's very rude. Xu Zi, spoiled since childhood, was at a loss by his mother's sudden reprimand. Finally, he could only awkwardly rub his nose. Mum, are we going to cremate second sister and bring her ashes back? My mother gave him a cold look and said nothing. My rented apartment wasn't very tidy. A 30-square-meter studio, the sofa and coffee table right next to the bed. Half of a leftover pomelo on the table, already shriveled. A blanket draped over the sofa. Books scattered messily on the floor. Susie had a slight obsession with cleanliness. He clearly wanted to say something, glanced at my mother, and ultimately didn't speak. My mother casually picked up a book. It was about psychology. She paused, flipped a few pages, and suddenly her fingers tightened. In the chapters about self-destructive tendencies and family of origin, I had underlined many passages. These pages were loose, flipping to them easily, clearly read repeatedly. She pulled open the drawer of the small cabinet beside her. Hospital records, notes from sessions with a psychologist, several empty pill boxes. At the very back, a small stack of plane and train tickets, mostly to popular coastal tourist cities. The small room was crowded with 4 people. Everyone could feel it. A heavy, viscous atmosphere was pressing down lower and lower, silently enveloping them. Xu Jiao couldn't take it first. Pointing at the topmost ticket to Sanya, Hainan, she said with forced cheerfulness, Well, at least Dao Dao lived well before she left. She's been to more places than any of us. This was one of the many tactics she had used against me before. Casually mentioning in front of the family that I was always happy without them. That I was always good to outsiders, not like the hysterical, confrontational person I was with them. To prove my coldness and heartlessness. But today, this tactic suddenly didn't work. My mother turned sharply, staring at her with a terrifyingly cold gaze. Mom. Xu Jiao had barely uttered the word when a heavy slap landed on her face. She was stunned. My father, who always doted on Xu Jiao, immediately came over to shield her, frowning. Can't we talk properly? Why hit the child? My mother was holding my notes from the psychologist's sessions. When did you start engaging in some self-harm behaviors? After starting middle school. No sense of belonging to the family. Why do you feel so superfluous? When I was 5, my sister said I should have died with my brother. If it weren't for me, she'd be the only child, enjoying all of Mom and Dad's love. My mom also said I was born bad, that I caused my brother's death. Do thoughts of suicide occur frequently? Does your family? Her lips trembled as if gradually enveloped by a belated pain. You acted so well behaved in front of us. Her voice was full of bewilderment. What did you say to Xu Tao behind our backs? My father disapprovingly said, Xu Tao was unlucky to begin with. Jiao didn't say anything wrong. You shut up. My mother shrieked, an abnormal flush rising on her face. Susie, worried about her health, quickly came over to support her. Dad, you know Mom has heart problems. Xu Tao is already dead. No matter what, you can't hit Jiao. My father glared. Xu Jiao seemed stunned by that slap. She looked at my mother, and after a long moment, suddenly revealed a sweet yet malicious smile. It was the landlady. She lived upstairs and opened the door wide-eyed. Who are you? Where's Xu Tao? The soundproofing in this apartment wasn't great. It couldn't contain the unrestrained quarrels of 4 people. She preferred quiet. When I lived here, there was hardly any noise. After the question was asked, I watched as all 4 of them, as if choked by the neck, suddenly fell silent. After a long while, my mother spoke. We are Xu Tao's family. She has passed away. We're here to collect her things. The landlady was shocked and disbelieving, eventually shedding tears. As she went upstairs, she cried softly. Such a good girl. Why so unlucky? I was quite unlucky. From birth until now, it has always been like this. Interrupted, they couldn't continue arguing, and began silently packing my things again. But what was there really to pack? I came into this world with nothing, and left with nothing. The only thing that weighed on my heart didn't care for me either. Finally, my mother sat by the sofa, flipping through the therapy records alone. Dusk had come again. Blood-red twilight poured through the glass into the room. The sound of car horns came from outside the window. Her movements stopped, her expression gradually drifting. Was she remembering something? Like that evening by the roadside, when she held my arm and I pushed her away slightly, and she eagerly withdrew her love. With me, she was always so stingy. Can that really be blamed on me? My mother closed the session notes, her voice hoarse. She's been willful since childhood, never close to me. With 3 children at home, of course I prefer the ones closer to me. No, you're wrong. You've mistaken cause and effect. Right after I was brought home, I instinctively sensed your coldness, so I kept testing you. When Xu Jiao said she wanted to help with chores, you'd smile and say, "What does a little child know? Go rest." When I offered to wash dishes, you eagerly agreed. Then, because I broke a bowl, you poked my forehead and called me clumsy. Mum. Once again, in a hoarse voice, I spoke words they couldn't hear. The broken sobs in my voice could no longer be hidden. Mom, you brought me into this world. I knew nothing. I loved you exactly as you loved me. My love was a mirror reflecting your love back at you. Everything. The cold sarcasm I vaguely learned. The hysterical emotional outbursts all taught by you. In this family, your significance to me was different from everyone else's. I was once in your womb, connected by blood for 10 whole months. This connection lingered even after I was born, tenacious and thin. So much so that even when I went thousands of miles away, it still pulled at me faintly. So much so that after I died, this invisible force still tugged my soul back to her side. I tried to convince myself the world was vast, life was broad. I didn't need to be trapped by the cage of my family. I went to see mountains, to see the sea, put away sharp objects, took my medication on time every day. But passing through a city, seeing a little girl at an amusement park holding a red balloon, walking hand in hand with her mother, I would still suddenly freeze in place. Watching her, just like in elementary school, when my deskmate told me with a little girl's particular pride that she'd done poorly on a test. Her mother scolded her. She deliberately ran out of the house. Her mother finally found her, held her, and cried, saying she was so afraid she'd get lost, that she'd never scold her again. I didn't understand back then. Only a loved child could act that way. So, another time, when my mother locked me in the storage room to reflect, I suddenly pushed the door open and ran out. I ran away from home. Sitting on the old swing in the neighborhood, watching the sparse stars in the night sky, rehearsing in my mind over and over. If Mom came looking for me out of worry, what would I say? After all, she was my mother. I couldn't let her be too upset. Just tell her to be a little better to me in the future. But I waited until midnight. Dark clouds covered the moon. A light rain began pattering down, the stars gone. I returned home soaked and dripping. The entire house was quiet. Everyone was asleep. Who would come looking for me? The next morning, as I left for school with my backpack, my mother sat at the dining table eating breakfast and said coolly, "So you decided to come back? I thought you'd live outside forever. Then there'd be one less mouth to feed at home. Only loved children dare to act spoiled, have the right to be willful." I never escaped the strange cycle of childhood. After age 5, I rushed around anxiously in a world without guidance. I asked my mother why many times. I was almost begging her to love me. I didn't need to be her favorite. Just to love me a little. Like she did with Susie and Xu Tao. You weren't incapable. Why couldn't you use it on me? Why? No answer. Night fell. She turned another page. Before she could read it, the police station called again. "Sorry, Ms. Zhao Su. We just caught the criminal recently, and the station has been overwhelmed. Your daughter left some belongings here. Could you come collect them when you have time?" My mother and Susie went out together. Outside, the city lights were coming on, traffic bustling. She walked with her head down for a while, then suddenly asked Susie, "Do you think Xu Tao hated me?" No, she wouldn't. Susie was clearly startled, taking several seconds to squeeze out a stiff reply. "Mom, you gave birth to her after all. Like that murderer said. She was calling for you before she died. How could she blame you?" Saying this, he suddenly fell silent. Susie was already 21, not a clueless child. All along, he hadn't liked me much, just not as obviously or actively malicious as Xu Tao. Most of the time, he silently stood behind Xu Tao, supporting her. But a child's behavior is just imitation of the adults who hold power in the family. Without our parents' tacit approval, Susie and Xu Tao would never have dared to target me so openly. I followed them to the police station for the second time. The officer handed my mother a bag of belongings. The contents were simple. A set of keys, a pack of tissues, a phone with a spiderweb cracked screen, and a blood-stained, completely twisted gold bracelet. Inside was a crumpled card. "Happy birthday, Mum." The moonlight wove through the air. My mother stared blankly at the gold bracelet, at the blood-blurred handwriting on the card. For a long time, in her eyes that had always been either cold or fiercely emotional toward me, a mist gradually welled up. On the 7th day after my death, in my 25th year of life, my mother, for the first time in her life, shed a tear for me. Turn back the clock 1 month. After that phone call, I went to work the next day. A colleague at the next desk told me she was pregnant. "I hope it's a girl," she said, placing her hand on her still flat stomach, a gentle smile on her lips. I love daughters the most. Since getting pregnant, I've been craving oranges. Her nickname will be Zhao Chengzi, Little Orange. She was the most dynamic, strong-willed woman in the department. But when mentioning her child, her expression was one of gentleness and serenity I'd never seen before. Noticing me staring blankly at her, she turned to me. "Xu Tao, what's wrong?" "Nothing," I shook my head. That night, I dreamed of the time before I was born. My mother, after finding out she was pregnant, also gently placed a hand on her stomach like that. She said, "Dao Dao, let's call her Dao Dao. I've been craving peaches so much since I got pregnant with you." It was the love I imagined. The love I dreamed of. I went to see the doctor again. He said, "If you can't find a way out no matter what, try looking backward." Some things were no longer illnesses that medication and therapy could alleviate. They had become demons that trapped my heart. I went and bought that gold bracelet. In 2 months it would be my mother's birthday. The saleswoman at the counter smiled and asked, "Would you like to write a blessing card for your mother?" I said yes, then took the pen from her. I thought, I'll try one more time. One more time. Now I'm not a clueless child and she is already aging, declining. Maybe we could talk. Pathetic. Pitiable, detestable. I always had hope. always wished she could still love me. But there would never be another chance. That day in the rain, I answered that phone call. Thus, my fate was sealed a month earlier. My ashes and belongings were brought home, placed in a cemetery in the suburbs. My twin brother was also buried there. The urn holding his ashes was very, very small. The day of the burial, the sky was overcast, but not a drop of rain fell. My mother stood before the tombstone all day. Her sorrow and regret were already beginning to show. I thought I would feel triumphant, freed. But in fact, watching her pain, I felt only endless indifference in my heart. Decades worth of pain and emotion had erupted, and been exhausted in those few hours. That night, after returning home, my mother sat quietly on the sofa. She was already retired. Suzy went back to school. My father was busy at the factory. Xu Tao returned to her little home with Song Fei. After this brief interlude, everyone went back to their own lives. After a long while, my mother suddenly tugged at the corner of her mouth, revealing a faint smile. Tao, now. Only the two of us are left. Stuck here. The next day, my mother got up very early and went to the market. Since she often bought seafood, the vendor enthusiastically promoted the day's goods as soon as she arrived, saying the shrimp were big and fresh. I guarantee your daughter will love them. My mother said blankly. My daughter is allergic to seafood. The vendor gave her a strange look but said nothing more, turning to serve other customers. My mother walked back and forth in front of several vegetable stalls with a bamboo basket. She picked up a carrot, then put it down. Picked up a bell pepper, then put it down. This behavior was so odd that the vendor tactfully reminded her, "What dishes are you planning to make? I can recommend some." I watched her standing there, struggling to remember, her eyes confused. Suddenly I understood. She didn't know what I liked to eat. Growing up, I never had the privilege to choose dishes like Xu Jiao, nor was I picky like Suzy. I had no choice. I always ate whatever she cooked. Finally, the vendor took a small bamboo basket from under the counter and pushed it toward my mother. Fresh wildwood ear fungus from Jiaocheng arrived today. Buy some to cook with meat. Jiaocheng. Wood ear fungus. These two words probably pierced her nerves like a sharp knife. Clutching a handful of fungus, my mother suddenly bent over, tears dripping down. Dao Dao. Dao Dao. This affectionate nickname, the times she had said it to my face could be counted on one hand. But now I was dead. How could I hear it? She bought nothing, returning home with the empty bamboo basket. After sitting blankly for a while, she got up and called Xu Jiao. Her tone was very cold. You haven't touched the piano in half a year. If you want it, I'll have someone deliver it to your house. If not, I'll let the junk collector take it away. Xu Jiao suddenly began to cry. She sobbed. Mom, what are you doing? Just because I'm married, am I not this family's daughter anymore? Don't I deserve a room here? Your bedroom is still yours. My mother said expressionlessly. I'm going to clear out Xu Dao's room. Xu Jiao fell silent. People can't foresee the future. That call from me she hung up before my death, while not making her directly responsible for my death, had made her position in this family very delicate. My mother acted quickly. The piano room was emptied the next morning. She wandered through furniture markets trying to find the exact same bed and wardrobe that had been thrown away before. But in the end, couldn't find perfect matches. She took the musty-smelling clothes from the storage room, smoothed them out one by one, and hung them in the wardrobe. There weren't many pieces anyway. Besides, they were all bought when I was in school. Even if I were alive, I wouldn't wear them now. Then she went out, found a goldsmith, had the bracelet repaired as much as possible, and wore it on her wrist. My memorial photo was placed in the room. Every day, the first thing my mother did after waking was go in and wipe it spotlessly clean. I didn't understand what she was trying to do. Compensation, or to make herself feel better. When I was alive, I had desperately longed for her love. Even just a little would have been enough, but I only received it after death. I drifted agitatedly around the room, wanting to sweep things off the shelves, tear up the new bedsheets and covers she'd put on, and throw them away. To point at her and say hurtful, self-destructive words, like during our countless arguments before. Stop the hypocritical act, Mum. Fabricating the illusion of loving me to ease your own guilt. Have you even convinced yourself But I couldn't say it. And even if I did, she couldn't hear me. For the first time, I realized how cruel it was to exist as a spirit. When would I dissipate and reincarnate? Or would I be trapped forever like this in this house that wasn't mine, a cold spectator to their happy lives? Fortunately, I soon had an answer. That afternoon, my mother suddenly received a call from Susie's school. They said Susie had gotten into a fight with a classmate, hitting him very hard. The other was seriously injured. Susie was being expelled. He might even face jail time. In any case, we hope the guardian comes to the school as soon as possible to handle the withdrawal procedures. My mother held the phone, stunned. Why? He graduates in just over half a year. How could he get into a fight for no reason? The school's explanation was tactful, polite, and relatively dignified, due to some emotional disputes. In reality, the girl Susie had been pursuing for so long, just one confession away from being his girlfriend, had been stolen by another boy. He ran to confront the boy, disbelieving. The boy held his girlfriend's hand and smiled helplessly. Your own sister died so tragically, and you still have the mood to pursue romance. Who would dare be with you? Susie furiously lunged at him. The two scuffled. In the heat of the moment, Susie picked up a glass and smashed it against the boy's forehead. Shards pierced his temple. Since Susie threw the first punch and the other was more seriously injured, expulsion was inevitable. Worse, the other family had already called the police. Susie, who had always been arrogant and domineering in front of me, burst into tears the moment he saw my mother. My mother sat down relatively calmly to discuss compensation with the other parents. They were adamant at first, saying they'd sue. Even if Susie didn't get much jail time, they'd give him a criminal record. Until my mother offered $1 million to settle. In the end, though Susie was expelled, he at least avoided jail. On the way home, his expression was utterly defeated. He couldn't help saying, Xu Tao's already dead. What's wrong with me dating? Can't I live a normal life? My mother whipped her head around to stare at him. Her gaze, as if examining a stranger, made Susie shiver. What's wrong, Mom? My mother shook her head, her voice hoarse. Let's go home. With only a high school diploma now, no decent company would hire Susie. My mother had him follow my father to the family factory, preparing to take over the business eventually. Because it was genuinely hard work, Susie was reluctant. But he knew there was no other way. And then, in the 3rd month after he entered the factory, something happened. A worker's right hand got caught in a machine and was mangled. He was rushed to the hospital, covered in blood, barely surviving. But his wife had just given birth, their child was still young, and the family lost its breadwinner. And my father, exploiting loopholes in the contract, not only avoided compensation, but instead sued the worker for damaging the machine due to improper operation. Justice may be slow, but retribution is certain. After being discharged, the worker stormed into the factory with a knife, found my father, and with the blade against his neck, forced him to put both hands into the machine. Susie stood by, watching dazedly as this happened. That was his own father. But he didn't even dare step forward to grab the knife. He only dared, after it was over, to send my father to the hospital and then call my mother. I floated behind her into the hospital, watched her walk over and slap the bewildered, panicked Susie. That was your father. Couldn't you stop it, save him? Susie's eyes reddened from the slap. He mumbled, Mom, he had a knife. How laughable. He dared to scuffle with a classmate over a girl. But didn't he dare to grab a knife for the father who always doted on him and planned to leave him the family business? My father's right hand couldn't be saved. Only 2 fingers remained on his left hand. The bare palm looked ghastly and terrifying. He said it hurt. My mother stared at the bloodstains on the bandage and suddenly asked blankly, Do you think that night was Dao in even more pain than this? She kept calling me. I didn't hear. How could I not have heard? There was no answer. Mum, why do you only understand now? Some questions have no answers, forever and ever. After my father was discharged, he became despondent and depressed. And Susie's abilities alone couldn't sustain the factory. At a loss, Xu Jiao brought Song Fei home. She proposed that she and Song Fei manage it together with Su Zi. My mother stared at her face. On that pretty face were faint patches of blue and purple, as if from an injury that was almost healed. What happened? My mother pulled Su Jiao into a room. After being asked twice, Su Jiao cried. After Su Dao died, Song Fei hasn't been good to me. Plus, since Dad said he'd give the factory to Su Zi, he had a big fight with me. Said no matter how much Dad dotes on me, the family business still goes to the son. I argued with him. He said Su Dao wasn't that bad at all, but if we hadn't slandered her in front of him, and if I hadn't sneaked into his room that night to seduce him, he definitely wouldn't have broken up with Su Dao. He even hit me. Said I deliberately didn't answer the phone, that I caused Su Dao's death. Mom, how could he treat me like this? Su Jiao had been pampered all her life. They couldn't bear to let her do heavy work. How had she ever experienced such pain? She looked at my mother tearfully, pitifully, tears gathering on her lashes, hoping she would stand up for her. But my mother just looked at her expressionlessly. Is what he said wrong? Su Jiao froze completely, staring at her in disbelief. You hated Su Dao so much. Su Dao never contacted you proactively. If she called you, it must have been urgent, even dangerous. You know what you were thinking when you hung up. She indifferently walked past Su Jiao and went out. I leaned hard against the wall, as if that could give me some support. So my mother could be clever too. Could keenly see through Su Jiao's little schemes. Could ruthlessly expose her tricks. Point out her malice toward me. But why, when I was alive, did I never feel it even once? It had to be after death that she showed me this. At dinner they argued again. Naturally, over the ownership of the factory. I had never coveted it. That Suzy and Su Jiao both took it for granted as theirs. They began to quarrel, exposing each other's faults. But somehow, the topic kept circling back to me. Suzy said, back then, when you ruined Mom's scarf, didn't you pin it on Su Dao? How dare you criticize me? Su Jiao said, why was Su Dao bullied in high school? Wasn't it because you untied her bra strap on the way to school and ran off? Right in front of those delinquents from her grade. As soon as Su Dao left for college, you immediately had Mom, who was still angry, turn her bedroom into a piano room. What talent do you have? What piano? As if others don't know your real intentions. You have the nerve. Wasn't it you who urged Mom to make Su Dao apply to a local university so she could help with chores? You wouldn't even wash your own underwear. Throw it all to Su Dao. Noisy, clamorous. What an ugly spectacle. My mother's face grew paler and paler. She suddenly stood up. Enough. Su Dao is dead and you still won't let her go. This messy, rotten, ugly family. Unfolding like a horrifying scroll. My mother braced herself against the table, her chest heaving violently. Su Dao died so tragically. Even the neighbors, even her landlady cried when they heard. But none of you shed a single tear for her. And now you're stirring up this mess, still dragging her out. You've had enough too. My father abruptly cut her off. I've been patient with your grief. But aren't you going too far, Xiao Su? I was in pain at the hospital, couldn't sleep all night. Didn't see you comforting me, only heard you mention Su Dao. Didn't even buy me breakfast in the morning, had to go wipe her memorial photo. To be honest, she was just unlucky. Choosing to die on her sister's auspicious day so inauspicious. Our family's luck is so bad now. It might well be her doing. He composed himself and said coldly, I've already consulted a master. He said as long as we move Su Dao's ashes out of the grave, make her well, and suppress her in the 18th layer of hell, her fate won't affect our family anymore. Then we'll be smooth sailing again. Really, even dead she's such bad luck. My mother said nothing. She was like a withered flower, instantly losing all remaining vitality. After a long, long time, she finally raised her eyes. With a gaze as sharp as a blade-piercing bone, she scanned the people before her inch by inch. My heartless, immoral father. Two-faced Su Jiao. Selfish, impulsive Suzy. Beneath this family's seemingly harmonious surface, it had long been rotten like decayed wood, full of holes. When I was still alive, they had merely used their hatred and disgust for me as a bond to barely maintain the facade. But now, I was dead, with my tragic death as the trigger. My mother's beloved husband and children finally revealed their horrifying true faces before her. Looking at the three people with varying expressions before her. No. 4. Including me in different song-fei, she suddenly became calm. Her tone was so gentle it was almost frightening. You're right. Xu Tao is the only unlucky one in this family. We shouldn't fight over her. Sit down, let's eat. Watching, I wasn't really surprised. It had always been like this for so many years. But this time, after washing the dishes, my mother locked herself in my bedroom. Holding my memorial photo, her fingertips trembling, she gently stroked it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Dao Dao. For so many years, you suffered far too much. We wronged you. Mom wronged you. Mom will make everyone apologize to you together. She pulled open a drawer and took out a medicine bottle. These days, she'd been waking from nightmares and had bought melatonin from the pharmacy. I watched as she crushed a whole bottle of pills and dissolved them in water. The next day, she cooked a large table of dishes, putting excessive melatonin in each one. After they ate, drowsy, they each went to their rooms to sleep. And my mother, she opened all the bedroom doors, locked the main door from the inside, collected everyone's phones, smashed them, and threw them out the window along with the house keys. Then closed all the windows tightly, turned on the gas valve, turned the stove burner to max, then extinguished it with water. After doing all this, she sat on the sofa holding my memorial photo, quietly waiting for death to arrive. I floated opposite her, watching. Just like outside the interrogation room glass that day, facing her. I watched her breathing grow more rapid, her pupils gradually dilating, her lips taking on an eerie cherry red hue. I said, Mom, why do this? Will using death to atone always earn forgiveness? No, it won't. I will hate you forever. I will never forgive you. Her life gradually faded. The faint, tenuous blood bond on me also faded. I drifted toward the door. The moment I reached the doorway, that restraint vanished completely. I heard my mother's voice. Dao Dao! Cautious, ecstatic. Dao Dao, is that you? Don't go yet, Dao Dao. Mom wants to see you. I didn't look back. We didn't see each other for the last time in life. Let's not meet after death either, Mum. My soul gradually shattered into particles, dissolving in the wind. I seemed to see Grandma, wearing that soft floral shirt, coming to take my hand. She said she had already scouted ahead for 20 years for our Dao Dao, found a very good family. Next life, our Dao Dao will definitely be happy. Then, Grandma will still be your grandma. We'll plant a tune tree and a peach tree in front of the house. The night was deep. My consciousness hadn't completely dissipated. So I witnessed the most breathtaking scenery in the world. Countless streams of light streaked across the night sky, scattering between mountains and seas. So there were meteors tonight. They say making a wish on a shooting star makes it come true. Then, in the next life, I want parents who love me. They don't need to be rich. Just have a cake on my birthday. Have a red balloon when we go to the amusement park. That's enough. The end.